Everybody's seen the clip by now. Blueface hopping over a kid, sprinting through a doorway like the floor caught fire behind him. And the timeline did what the timeline does. Turned it into a meme. Crowned him the fastest man on the West Coast. Kept it pushing. Nah, slow it down. Because buried under the jokes is a story about a house nobody's actually running. A mother building a case file in real time. And a name Karlissa Saffold swore she'd never say again. Suddenly being floated as the rescue plan. The altar is the headline. It was never the story. Quick thing before we open this file. If this is how you like your breakdowns, hit like, subscribe, tap the bell, because this one goes deeper than the timeline did. Alright, let's walk it. Start with the where, Blueface Place, the same Los Angeles area property that keeps doubling as a content set. The same address foreclosure rumors reportedly keep circling. And that word, content set, is doing more work than it looks. That house, for the last 2 years of streams, podcast drop-ins, and impromptu press runs, has been the physical backdrop for arguments, apologies, brand deals, birthday clips, and at least 3 viral fights that ended with somebody unfollowing somebody by sundown. It isn't just where he sleeps. It's the studio, which means whatever happens inside those walls isn't private in the traditional sense. It's inventory. Keep that framing close, because it changes how you read every leaked clip that keeps sliding out of that address. The when, early August, days after the internet finished chewing on the July 20th boat party, and the cheating confession that followed it. Understand what days after means in this context. In the modern gossip cycle, a story has roughly a 72-hour half-life before the algorithm demands a new twist. The altar clip landed almost exactly on that timer. Right when interest in the boat should have been dying. Right when the confession should have been folded into old news status. Timing that clean is either luck or laundry. And in a house that has reportedly monetized every argument since 2022, luck stops being the first assumption. The what? His pregnant girlfriend, Nevaeh Akira, due, per Complex's reporting, around August 24th, was filmed during a live stream at what viewers described as a ritual setup. Candles and offerings arranged on the floor. Blueface walked in, froze, and left the room at full speed. And the witch, his mother's response, not a comment, not a subtweet, but a full multi-post campaign complete with movie references, prayer requests, and one demand she kept repeating. Get that altar out of that house. And notice the delivery mechanism, because it matters. Karlissa didn't call, didn't text, didn't drive over. She went live. The choice of channel is the message. Whatever was happening between mother and son had already left the family and become a broadcast. Once you make a family issue a public performance, you're not asking for a resolution. You're asking for a verdict. And verdicts, unlike conversations, require an audience, which is exactly what she assembled, comment by comment, share by share, for the better part of a week. Set the table. 5 voices. No spin yet. First, the man himself, weeks before any of this. July 17th, on stream. Sitting right next to Nevaeh. I wouldn't have made you my girlfriend if I was going to cheat on you. Per Complex's coverage. Filed under. Statements that aged in 72 hours. Rewind that moment for a second, because the framing matters. He didn't say it in passing. He said it into the camera, next to her, on a live broadcast. The equivalent of a public vow with a viewership counter running in the corner. Which means when it collapsed, it didn't collapse privately. It collapsed with receipts, time-stamped, clip-ready, ready-made for exactly the kind of montage his mother would end up amplifying weeks later. If you were designing a self-destruct sequence in slow motion, that sentence is where you'd start to fuse. 3 days later came the boat. July 20th, Los Angeles, Chrisean Rock on board, and their exchange on deck ended with her laying out the only terms she's ever really cared about. When you start claiming your son, that's when the beef is over. No ambiguity in that sentence. None. And that's the part everybody skipped past on their way to the memes. That sentence isn't a shot. It's a contract offer. Chrisean, in one line, reduced the entire multi-year Blueface saga. The arrests, the streams, the arguments, the appearances, the aliases, down to a single, cheap, achievable ask. Acknowledge the child. Free of charge. No lawyers. No settlement. Just say the words in public. The fact that he still hasn't, as of the timeline this video is walking, tells you more about the power dynamics in that family than any altar clip ever will. Then the confession. Back on stream, Blueface said it flat. I cheated. I know. Sorry. And Nevaeh's answer is the one worth framing. There's no reason to say sorry if you had intentions on doing it. Both quoted in Complex's report. That's a woman doing math out loud. Quietly. Correctly. And it lands even harder when you notice the structure of what she said. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She didn't perform. She dismantled the apology by pointing out its logical impossibility. You can't be sorry for something you planned. In a house where volume is currency. She went the opposite direction, precision, which is exactly the kind of composure that makes a certain kind of mother-in-law nervous, because composed women don't leave when they're told to. They leave when they decide to. And composed women who are 8 months pregnant, per Complex's timeline, don't leave at all until after the birth certificate is signed. Now rewind further, because this one's the hinge. While Blueface was still locked up, Chrisean went on camera with, I'm sorry, Karlissa. I'm sorry, Jaden. I apologize to that whole side of people. As Hot New Hip Hop reported. At the time, it read like growth. Keep it in your pocket. Because growth would have been apologizing to him. Or to herself. Growth would have been quiet. Off camera. On a phone call nobody ever posted. What she did instead was a public address to 2 named women, the mother and the co-parent, with a general amnesty extended to that whole side of people. That's not a personal statement. That's a diplomatic communique. She was, whether consciously or not, negotiating reentry rights to a family she'd been publicly at war with. And reentry rights, once granted, are hard to revoke, as we're about to see. One more from him. After the boat, Blueface posted a screenshot of Chrisean trying to come by that same night and captioned it as her wanting to be part of the circus. Per XXL. Hold that word circus, because his mother's about to hire a whole act. Sit with the irony for a beat. He called her the circus while live streaming from the tent, in front of a paying audience, next to his pregnant girlfriend, 3 days after admitting infidelity. In a saga where nobody's hands are clean, the naming of a circus by the ringmaster is either a lack of self-awareness so profound it's almost impressive or a deliberate reframe designed to relocate the chaos to somebody else's doorstep. Given his track record with narrative control, safer bet on the second one. And then Karlissa this week, allegedly typing with her whole chest. I need a priest or a preacher who specialized in demon removals, Santa Clarita, ASAP. In coverage of her livestream making the rounds on Facebook. I read that sentence 4 times. Not because it's confusing, because it's specific. A city. A specialty. A deadline. Break that sentence down like a want ad, because that's essentially what it is. She named the geography, Santa Clarita, which narrows the credential pool. She named the specialty, demon removals, which is a very specific service most clergy don't advertise on their websites. And she named the urgency, ASAP, which converts a spiritual concern into a logistics problem. Real panic doesn't come with a service specification and a zip code. Real panic comes with tears, incoherent posts, deleted stories. This came with a checklist, which, again, is not judgment, it's just observation. Panic and planning wear different clothes. There's also the prayer barrage. Everybody say a prayer for my baby, please and thank you. Posted alongside a Carrie still and a note that Jonathan was her only child scared of scary movies. As far as we can tell from the posts making the rounds, she worked that bit for days. Committed to the bit. You almost have to respect the commitment. Almost. Because the Carrie choice is loaded. A movie whose entire premise is a young woman weaponizing her power against everyone around her, especially the ones who underestimated her. That's the reference she picked. Not The Exorcist. Not Rosemary's Baby, not Poltergeist. Carrie, the one where the girl is the danger. Movie references on social media do double duty. They set the emotional register, and they tell you exactly how the poster wants you to cast the drama in your head. Cast Nevaeh in that role for a week, and see how many followers still show up to the baby announcement neutral. Oh, and the line that should have been every headline. You know it's bad when I want Chrisean to go get Jonathan. Yeah. Sit with that one. We will. Because that sentence is a rupture in the entire storyline. This is the same mother who, per 2 years of public commentary, treated Chrisean Rock as the single greatest threat to her son's stability, career, and personal safety. This is the woman who, according to widely circulated clips, once physically intervened in their relationship. And now she's floating that same woman as the rescue call? Either something has fundamentally shifted in her risk assessment, or Chrisean has been reclassified. No longer a threat, now an asset. And in a family where relationships are pieces on a board, reclassification is how power gets redistributed. Now connected. February. Nevaeh announces the pregnancy on stream. Due date reportedly August 24th. And almost immediately, Karlissa publicly questioned paternity and pushed for a DNA test, per Complex's reporting on their earlier livestream argument. That's the opening position. This relationship started on contested ground, and that opening position is the entire foundation of everything that came after. When the first public act of a pregnancy is a paternity challenge from the paternal grandmother, you have effectively established, on record, that the child's legitimacy will be disputed until proven. That's not just a personal jab, that's a legal posture. Because if paternity is ever formally contested later, the fact that it was publicly questioned for months, one becomes part of the narrative any lawyer, judge, or mediator will read into the case. February was not a comment. February was a filing. While Blue was behind bars, Chrisean makes that apology. The one addressed to Karlissa and Jaden Alexis, framed as being about her son thriving alongside his siblings. Notice the mechanics, though. She didn't apologize to Blueface. She apologized to the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers heard it. There's no evidence they responded warmly at the time. The reception, per Hot New Hip Hop's coverage, was cool at best and openly skeptical among fans. But apologies of that kind don't require immediate reception. They require preservation. They're deposits in a relationship bank that don't earn interest until you need to make a withdrawal. Chrisean made that deposit while Blue was incarcerated, and Karlissa is now making the withdrawal in August. That's textbook long play family politics, whether either woman thinks of it that consciously or not. Then the release. Then July. And July is where the timing gets loud. July 17th, the fidelity promise. July 20th, the boat. Days later, the confession. And here's where I gotta stop for a second. Actually, hold on, back up, because this part is the part. The apology, the boat, and the confession all orbit the same two people. And the only person who benefits from all three landing in sequence is the mother who's been publicly at war with the girlfriend since February. Think about the gravitational pull of that sequence. Nevaeh took damage from the confession. Blueface took damage from the confession. Chrisean took a mild reputational bump from being back in the frame, but nothing career-altering. The one non-participant in any of those events who somehow ended up with more leverage over the household when the dust settled was Karlissa. She didn't board the boat. She didn't make the promise. She didn't confess. And yet by the first week of August, she was the loudest voice in the entire story and, per her own livestream, the one issuing directives about who gets sent to fetch her son. That's not coincidence. That's ecology. She was the top of the food chain in a room where everyone else was busy being prey. Then the altar footage surfaces. And within hours, Karlissa isn't reacting. She's mobilizing. Prayer posts. Carry and fatal attraction comparisons. The priest request with a city attached. A threat on stream. To call the pastor who baptized Blue and report him for running. A claim that a cleaner had already been sent to deal with the altar. Plus a warning to her own followers. Demand a removal or get blocked. Every single one of those moves is a channel, not a message. Prayer posts are a channel to the religious community. Movie comparisons are a channel to casual scrollers. The priest request is a channel to Santa Clarita-adjacent clergy networks. The pastor threat is a channel to Blue's spiritual accountability structure. The cleaner claim is a channel to the handling business wing of her audience. And the block warning is a channel to her own base, filtering out the soft supporters from the ride-or-die ones. 6 audiences, 6 frequencies, 1 operator. That's not grief. That's broadcasting. That last one matters more than it looks. That's not pattern behavior. That's list building. You don't threaten to block people unless you're counting who stays. And in the creator economy, a list is a weapon. A curated audience, one that's been pre-filtered through a loyalty test. is worth more per capita than a raw audience, 10 times its size. Karlissa, whether she framed it this way to herself or not, was doing what political campaigns call base consolidation. Every follower who pushed back got cut. Every follower who reposted got promoted in the algorithm by engagement. By the end of that week, whatever audience remained around her was, by design, sympathetic to whatever came next. And what came next was the Chrisean pivot. One more thread, while we're here. Jaden Alexis, the mother of his other 2 kids, reportedly drew her own line about the children being around that house, and Karlissa publicly backed it, demanding an apology to the kids and Jaden. Translation: the 2 mothers of his existing children and his actual mother are now aligned on one side of the fence. On the other side of the fence is a woman 8 months deep into a pregnancy, reportedly outnumbered 3 households to 1. Keep that alignment in mind. It comes back around. Because that alignment isn't just social, it's structural. It means that if any custody, visitation, or paternity dispute ever arises around the incoming child, there are already 3 separate, publicly established maternal figures on record with grievances against Nevaeh's presence in the home. That's a lot of coordinated testimony, whether it ever reaches a courtroom or just a series of live streams that shape public opinion about who belongs and who doesn't. Coalitions like that don't form by accident, and they don't dissolve easily. Once you've publicly aligned with the mother of Blueface's other children against the mother of his newest, you've made a choice that will define the household calculus for years. And the whack 100 detail. She told viewers she blocked her son's own manager, the man who's repped Blueface since he was 18 and still speaks on his career to outlets like TMZ, because his response to the alter situation was, in her telling, some version of leave that boy alone, he groaned. She blocked the manager. Cut the line. That's a message to everybody on payroll, not just whack. And that message reads loud in every WhatsApp thread in Blueface's professional orbit. If the manager, the man who negotiates with labels, coordinates media, and has arguably kept the artist's career alive through multiple self-inflicted wounds, can be publicly cut off by mom over a single dissenting opinion, then every producer, publicist, feature artist, and lawyer downstream knows exactly where the leverage lives. Not with the label, not with the manager, with the family. That's a career-shaping precedent, dropped almost casually in the middle of a live stream about candles. Zoom in now. Small fragments. 3 of them. The closet. In her live stream, Karlissa kept circling one detail. The alleged altar wasn't in a living room, a kitchen, a shared space. It was reportedly built in a closet. His closet. And her argument was almost architectural. If your God told you to build it there, your God doesn't know this house. Strip the theology and look at what that framing accomplishes. It recasts Nevaeh as a guest misusing storage, not a partner sharing a home. 8 months pregnant, and the conversation is about whose closet it is. That's deliberate. And it's a language choice, too. In real estate parlance, closets are personal. They hold your clothes, your history, the things you don't want visitors seeing. To locate the altar in his closet specifically is to argue not just that Nevaeh was in the house, but that she'd crossed into a personal, intimate zone she had no right to. It's a subtle claim about consent, about ownership, about who owns what square footage inside a relationship. And when you're 8 months pregnant and being litigated in real time on stream over whose closet gets used for what, the room stops feeling like a home and starts feeling like a lease dispute. The candle. Run the clip back. Reportedly, she says his name, Jonathan, the government name, not the rap name, and blows the candle toward the doorway. And he bolts. His mother's read was, she wanted you to breathe in that candle. Forget whether you buy any of the spiritual mechanics. A man flinched at the sound of his own legal name in his own house. That's not comedy timing. That's a decision he'd already made about that room, and his body made it before his mouth did, because bodies remember what mouths deny. And the split second between hearing your name and hearing your government name, for a public figure who spent a decade building a stage persona to insulate himself from his private one, is the split second where the mask slips. Blueface has a persona. Jonathan is a person. And whatever was happening in that room, it was happening to Jonathan, not Blueface. That's why the sprint reads the way it does. It's not the rapper running from a bit. It's the man running from something that recognized him under the name. The DP bit. Karlissa repeated it all stream. She was going to call the pastor, report him, get him disciplined by the very church that baptized him. It plays like a joke, and honestly the chat treated it like one. But look at the structure underneath. Pastor, priest, prayer team, cleaner. She's stacking spiritual authorities, like witnesses. Every post is time-stamped. Every demand is on record. If this family ever ends up in front of a judge over custody or paternity, and with a due date and a denied paternity question floating around, that's not a crazy thought. This archive walks in as exhibits. Whether she means it that way or not. I had to read her post history twice, because it doesn't look like venting. It looks like documentation. There's a legal concept called contemporaneous documentation. Records made in real time, at the moment of an event, before the outcome is known. Courts weigh them heavily precisely, because they can't be edited after the fact. What Karlissa built over the course of that week, whether by accident or design, is a masterclass in contemporaneous documentation of a household deemed unsafe for a child. Every live stream is time-stamped. Every screenshot has metadata. Every prayer post is publicly archived on platforms with server logs. If anyone ever wanted to argue, in any forum, that the environment surrounding Nevaeh's pregnancy was contested from month one, the evidence has already been filed. In public. For free. And this one's behavioral. Go back to that apology Chrisean made while Blue was locked up. Watch who it was addressed to. Not him. Karlissa. Jaden. That whole side of people. In this family, the women around Blueface have learned the shape of power. And the shape is mom first. Everybody who's lasted more than a season figures that out eventually. The ones who don't get a live stream dedicated to them. And once you see that shape, the whole family history reads differently. Every ex-partner who ended up publicly exiled had one thing in common. They positioned themselves as Blueface woman first and the family's daughter-in-law second. Every partner who stuck around, even through storms, positioned themselves the opposite way. It's not a rule anyone published. It's a rule the environment enforces. Karlissa doesn't need to state it, because the outcome's stated for her. And Nevaeh, per every publicly available clip, has been operating on the first model since February. Blueface woman, unapologetically, without any deference to the maternal wing. Which is why the maternal wing has been publicly hostile since February. One more before we zoom back out. The language of ownership. Listen to how Karlissa refers to the house across her posts and streams. It's that house. The house Jonathan's in. His house. But rarely, if ever, their house. That grammatical choice, repeated across days, does a lot of work. It quietly denies Nevaeh any claim to the residence. It reinforces the closet framing. It sets up a rhetorical world in which one person is the resident and the other is the visitor, even if the visitor is carrying the resident's child. Words are cheap. Repeated words are architecture. Okay, breathe. Because now we get to how the rest of the world packaged this. Complex covered it as a relationship story. The cheating confession, the argument on stream, the boat party, clean, sequential, showbiz framing. Their headline energy is basically, rapper does rapper things, girlfriend reacts. What's interesting is what that flattens. The mother. In their version, Karlissa is background noise, when she's arguably the most active character in the whole saga. And that flattening is a habit, not a mistake. Mainstream entertainment coverage is built around the artist as the primary character. The label pays for that centering. The SEO rewards that centering. The audience expects that centering. So when a family member is the actual protagonist of the week, the coverage often can't find the language to say so. It defaults to what the templates allow. Rapper, girlfriend, drama, headline. The truth of who is moving the pieces gets edited out, because the truth requires an editorial framing the pop culture desk isn't equipped to file. Which is exactly the gap this kind of breakdown is designed to close. Hot New Hip Hop took the growth angle on the earlier apology, and credit where due. They printed the skeptics too, including the commenter flatly wondering how that family could ever trust it. Read that skepticism again now, months later, with Karlissa suddenly floating Chrisean as the cavalry. Hits different, doesn't it? Meanwhile, the clip pages and the comment sections went full comedy, voodoo jokes, Usain Bolt captions, clown emojis. That's the dominant read. And look, I get it. It is a funny clip. A man of his size clearing furniture like that? Come on. But comedy has a cost in stories like this. Every laugh is a redirect. Every meme is a pixel of context that doesn't get consumed. And the more the internet laughs, the less pressure there is on anyone in the frame to actually answer for anything. That's why the family that laughs loudest often wins these cycles. Laughter is the closest thing the algorithm has to absolution. Blueface didn't have to address the confession because the Sprint clip absorbed the attention. And Karlissa didn't have to justify the escalation because everyone was too busy watching him hurdle a couch. So Steelman the other side. The loudest counter-take is simple. Karlissa's doing too much. It's her adult son's house, his girlfriend, his chaos. And mom live streaming about demon removal embarrasses him and inflames a family matter for views. Honestly, there's a version of events where that's exactly right. And that version deserves its full airing before we move on. It goes like this. A Christian mother, recently deep in her faith, walks in on what she believes is a spiritual attack on her son and her unborn grandchild. Panic sets in. Her instinct is to activate every resource she has, and her resources happen to be public. She's a live streamer. Her son is a rapper. Her audience is her toolkit. She reaches for what she knows. She overshoots. She makes it worse. But her intentions are protective, not political. In that reading, everything from the priest request to the Chrisean floater is grief on a public timeline, not strategy. And that reading isn't crazy. It's just incomplete. But that read only survives if you skip the timeline we just walked. She questioned paternity back in February. The apology from the woman, she's now floating as the rescuer, happened while Blue was locked up. Months of runway. The block threats. The pastor call. The cleaner. None of that is improv. You can call it overkill. You cannot call it spontaneous. And overkill with a filing system isn't overkill. It's a plan. Which brings us to the part nobody's saying out loud. The mainstream read is tidy. A religious mother is scared for her son's soul. Sweet. Simple. Photographs well. I'm stepping off that bus. Here's the actual claim. This was never about the altar. The altar is the pretext, the cleanest, most legible reason Karlissa has ever been handed to do what she's reportedly wanted since February, which is to remove Nevaeh Akira from that house in a way where her son doesn't have to wear the villain suit. And that's the elegance of it, if you can call it elegant. The altar gives everyone a graceful exit. Blueface doesn't have to break up with a pregnant woman on camera. He can just claim spiritual incompatibility. Karlissa doesn't have to admit she never liked Nevaeh. She can claim she was protecting her grandchild. The audience doesn't have to feel bad about picking a side. The framing does the picking for them. Every party gets to keep their public reputation intact while the actual outcome, Nevaeh being isolated, delegitimized, and eventually displaced, proceeds on schedule. That's what makes it a pretext instead of a reaction. Pretexts serve the plan. Reactions serve the moment. This one is way too orderly to be the second thing. Look at the toolkit. She can't evict the girlfriend, not her house. And with foreclosure chatter reportedly hanging over the property, nobody's rushing into legal fights. She can't order Jonathan. The direct route's been tried for months, and the due date kept coming anyway. So she reached for the one lever that has always worked on Blueface specifically. His image. And his image is uniquely fragile because it's uniquely leveraged. Blueface's entire brand runs on being unbothered. The guy who can't be embarrassed, can't be humbled, can't be caught slipping. That brand is worth money. It's why he's still a name a decade into a career built on a novelty flow. And nothing damages that brand faster than a viral clip of him sprinting away from something small. Karlissa knows this. Every mother of a famous son eventually learns what specifically her son can't afford to be seen as. And she spent enough years around this one to have that ledger memorized. The Sprint clip didn't just embarrass him. It devalued him. And she didn't leverage that damage on his behalf. She amplified it. That's the move that gives the whole game away. And I want to be fair here for exactly one breath, because it's easy to clown a mother live streaming about priests. And honestly, I've done my share of it in this video already. But strip the theatrics, and there is a real woman who watched her son cycle through chaos for years and concluded the only language this situation understands is public pressure. She's wrong about the method. I'm not sure she's wrong about the diagnosis. Because here's the tragedy tucked inside the theater. Whatever else is true, Karlissa has probably tried the quiet route. Every parent of an adult child who's in a relationship they distrust has tried the quiet route first. The private conversations, the pointed hints, the "I just want what's best for you" dinners. And when the quiet route fails, some parents accept it and step back. Others go public. The choice to go public is often a confession of failure at every other level. So even inside the loudest, most calculated version of what she's doing, there's a version of a woman who tried and lost every other move. That doesn't excuse the escalation, but it does explain the shape of it. Okay, breath's over. Back to the autopsy. She never told him leave her. She told the world, in effect, everybody just watched you sprint away from a pregnant woman, and I will personally make sure nobody forgets it. Those sprint memes she's amplifying, she's not embarrassed by that footage. She's distributing it. And the Chrisean card, that's the tell. Read, you know it's bad when I want Chrisean to go get Jonathan, as a mother, and it's desperation. Read it as a strategist, and, actually, scratch strategist. That gives it too much polish. Read it as a person who's watched this family operate for years, and it's a depth chart. Karlissa spent the better part of 2 years treating Rock like a natural disaster. You don't reverse that in public unless the reversal itself is the weapon. Because what does floating Chrisean actually accomplish? 3 things at once. It tells Nevaeh there's a replacement warming up with history and a grandson in the family. It tells Blue the door he keeps leaving cracked. His mother is now holding wide open. And it tells the audience to pick a side, because she already picked hers. There's a 4th thing that Chrisean Floater does, and it's the one that makes the move a genuine masterstroke of household politics. It launders Chrisean's reinstatement through Nevaeh's demonization. Under normal circumstances, welcoming Chrisean back into the fold would cost Karlissa credibility. She'd have to explain the 2-year war, the physical incidents, the public disavowals. But if Chrisean is being brought back not as a partner, but as a rescuer, the framing does the explanatory work for free. I don't like her either, but she's the lesser evil right now, is a much easier public position than, I change my mind. One requires an apology. The other requires only a common enemy. Karlissa didn't just float Chrisean. She built a runway. And the jabs write themselves. But let's sharpen a few. She reportedly received Christ, recited John 3 verse 16, got the full conversion welcome from this family. And the moment an altar appeared, the same people who celebrated her salvation went shopping for a priest. Grace with a return policy. That's the specific hypocrisy that stings. Because it's the one that reveals the theology as decorative. Real conviction survives disagreement. Conditional conviction gets weaponized the moment a household member steps out of line. And if the same John 3 verse 16 that was preached over Nevaeh's welcome now can't accommodate her spiritual differences without a citywide priest search, then the belief system was never the point. Belonging was the point. And belonging in this family has always been probationary. Blue told Nevaeh he has authority over her through Jesus Christ, per his mother's own retelling. Authority. From a man who spent July making promises on a Thursday and breaking them by the weekend. That word is doing cardio in that house. Because authority is what people reach for when respect isn't holding. Nobody in a functional relationship invokes divine hierarchy to win a Thursday night argument. The claim itself is the tell. The moment a partner has to cite scripture to enforce leadership, the leadership has already collapsed and the citation is the funeral. It doesn't help that the sequence went, promise fidelity on Thursday, break it by Sunday, cite divine authority the following month. In that order, authority isn't a spiritual position. It's a rhetorical crutch. And look, almost against my will, a sympathetic one. Nevaeh, deep in her 3rd trimester, arguing about trust on stream while her due date trends as content. Whatever you think about candles and oranges, that is a brutal way to spend the final weeks of a pregnancy. Somebody in that situation deserved one quiet room. She hasn't gotten one. And the medical reality behind that observation deserves a second of air. The final weeks of a pregnancy, the last 4 to 6 especially, are the ones every OB in the country will tell a patient to protect. Sleep matters. Stress hormones matter. The physical proximity of conflict matters. Whatever else can be debated in this story, The fact that a woman 8 months into gestation is spending her days managing a public opinion war, a cheating scandal, and a spiritual denouncement campaign is a legitimate concern that transcends any team you're rooting for. Babies feel the household they arrive into. That one is being introduced early. Then there's Whack, the fixer, the man who's navigated label politics, jail logistics, press cycles, benched, blocked, over an altar, the most connected person in that orbit, thumbs down by mom. Somewhere there's a group chat with one fewer member and one more plotline. And the industry watches that block. Music industry veterans don't miss a signal that clean. Every A&R rep in Los Angeles who might have been considering placing a feature, offering a bag, or booking a session with Blueface just watched a manager get benched for saying he's grown. Which means every one of those reps is now recalibrating how to reach the artist. Do you go through Whack, who might not have real authority anymore? Or do you go through the mother, which is a whole different professional protocol? Uncertainty at that level slows business. Slowed business shrinks bags. Shrunk bags eventually reach the artist, which loops right back to the image is his one lever thread from earlier. She just tightened it another notch, whether that was the plan or the byproduct. Everybody keeps asking whether the altar worked. Wrong question. Ask who it's working for. So where does this go? 3 paths. No labels, just trajectories. Most likely. Watch how the coming weeks compress. The due date reportedly lands this month, and babies shrink every timeline. The altar, or at least the footage of it, quietly disappears. Nevaeh either posts a soft focus reset, or goes dark entirely. And don't be shocked when Chrisean just happens to be around more. Not official, not announced, just present, with Karlissa suddenly unable to recall why they ever feuded. Blue, meanwhile, will say nothing of substance, because he never does when silence is the profitable move. That's the skill nobody credits him for. The man weaponized the sprint. His whole career is sprinting out of rooms and letting everybody else argue about the room. The failure prediction for Nevaeh's side. Somebody in her circle goes live to defend the practice, over-explains it, and hands the timeline its next meme. The favored side wins the way it always does in this family. Whoever controls the narrative after the baby arrives controls the year. And watch the birth announcement itself, because the first photo will tell you everything. Who's in the frame? Who's tagged? Which grandparent gets the proud caption first? What surname appears on any official paperwork that gets leaked or shared? Those details, in a family that operates like this one, are not accidents. They're position statements dressed up as milestones. If Karlissa gets the first hospital pick and Nevaeh's family gets a delayed repost, you'll know exactly who controlled the room. If it's the reverse, the ground shifted more than anyone let on. Either way, the announcement isn't just a birth. It's a scoreboard. Now the flip. He chooses her. Publicly. It wouldn't be the first time Blue zigged against his mother's broadcast. He's gone on camera before and called Karlissa the root of the family drama. If he decides that spring clip wounded him enough that the only counter is defiance, expect the flag plant. DNA talk settled out loud. The baby's name announcement, a loyalty stream. That path snaps Karlissa's leverage, because her whole campaign assumes he won't defend Nevaeh in public. The failure prediction flips sides too. Push past that point and mom loses access, and access, not approval, is the real currency in that family. Watch the Whack line as the tell. The day that block lifts is the day she's accepted the new reality. And if that path unfolds, watch for the second-order signals. A Nevaeh-produced content series, with Blue as co-host. A joint interview with a friendly podcast, the kind where the interviewer doesn't ask hard questions. A coordinated brand partnership rolling both of them into a single business entity. Those are the moves a couple makes when it's decided to formalize itself against family opposition. They're not dramatic. They're procedural. And procedure is what people reach for when they've decided the emotional argument is already lost with the people they can't win over. If any of those signals appear in the first 90 days postpartum, you'll know he flipped. And the long one, 5 years out. Once the dust settles, this whole era becomes lore. The altar clip gets filed next to every other artifact of the Blueface extended universe. The kind of footage that resurfaces in documentaries nobody's announced yet. A kid grows up with a searchable birth narrative containing candles, a sprinting father, and a grandmother's demon removal want ad. And the industry lesson that sticks has nothing to do with spirituality. In the creator economy, family conflict is a renewable resource, and this family knows exactly where to drill. By the time that boy's in kindergarten, expect some network or streamer to have tried bottling this exact chemistry for a format. An exec is whiteboarding it right now. And here's the sadder version of that long-range projection. That child, whoever's DNA it turns out to carry, whoever ends up in the parenting rotation, is going to grow up in an internet that never forgets. Every live stream that got clipped this month is permanent. Every meme is searchable. Every prayer post is archived. And at some point, likely around age 11 or 12, when he gets his first phone and figures out how to type his own name into a search bar, he's going to read this era from the outside. What he finds will shape his relationship with every adult currently arguing over him. That's the actual long-term consequence of turning a household into content. The household eventually gets consumed by the audience that watched it grow. The altar gets removed or it doesn't. Either way, somebody in that house already got exactly what they wanted. Sit with which somebody you think it is. You saw what the clip shows and what it doesn't. If this read earned it, you know the ritual. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and don't wander far because the due date's coming. Part 2 of this is already loading, and famed Cryptix doesn't miss a chapter. See you in the comments. Fight me down there.